Hello and welcome. This is kind of new for me and most likely for a lot of the league, but we've got a LBLCS podcast type thing going on here. Obviously, I am Roselle, Saint Valentine, Daniel, whatever you want to go with, and I am joined by the wonderful support of PC Elite PC Jackie Boy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing great. And we've got a bazillion playoff matchups to talk about, obviously, later into some playoffs than others, but we've still got the opportunity to go over so many matches. And obviously, we're going to just kick it off with, I think, one of the most hyped up leagues, uh, Financial, which obviously you are a part of. So, kind of give us the lowdown, just a quick scope of all the teams that are in the playoff right now. What are your general thoughts about them going in?
So I guess we kind of have to start with Coffee House. They
Mm-hmm.
came in, they lost one match, and then they decided that they didn't like doing that, and then they won every other match,
Yeah,
including
that.
the ones against us, like in pretty strong fashion, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like as the eighth seed going up against them in the like round one, I think we really have our hands full here. That being said, I think all the players on Coffee House are not only good at League, but they're just good people. They're
Yeah.
a ton of fun to hang out with. I've like chatted with like TripleNet and Papaba like pretty extensively, and I think that they're
Mm-hmm.
just like great people to kind of hang around with. So hopefully they stick around moving forward. But moving on from
Definitely.
that, I think Canadian beer drinkers, like they're just a really good team. I think
Mm-hmm.
they play really well through their carries, especially Bopes. I think like being able to play through a strong carry like that is really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So them having that strength is pretty important to their like pretty core identity. And having laned against Bopes, like I wouldn't want
Ugh.
to do it again. So like the fact that he's on kind of my side of the bracket, kind of per se. So like
Yeah.
if Evil Rival Dojo takes down Canadian beer drinkers and sends them down to like fight with us if we lose to Coffee House, then like I don't want to do it
Yeah. And
again.
then even if you won, you might have to match up against them anyway. It's like it
I
almost feels like a
know,
lose
right?
lose. Yeah, but I mean,
Right.
Canadian beer drinkers is like crazy. I know Bopes is really good, but I believe their mid laner's leaving me right now. I'm trying to remember because they've been playing basically like mid eight, like letting either of them carry the games if they need to. I'm going to do very quick scrolling up to double
Hmm.
check. I believe Clovis. Thank you, Clovis. Like I was a
Yeah, he's a
huge
rock. He's definitely
yeah.
stable.
Clovis last season was I think not. I think no, it wasn't Canadian beer drinkers, or it might have been whoever the like the 14 with like Grim Senpai and whatever that team was. Oh, it might have been Canadian Beer Drinkers. I don't know.
I
But
think
Clovis
so.
was the top laner on that team, and I was like
Yeah.
Clovis is easily like the second or third best top laner in the league, and now he's really good playing in mid lane for Canadian Beer Drinkers, and like actually ridiculous. And then you have Odog, boy named Luke, and one of my favorite people, Dutch Krampus, just like supporting and playing around the carries, and just it makes them really good. If there is a team that I could see taking a game off of Coffee House, this is one of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think Canadian beer drinkers like as a fourth seed, I think that's a little bit deceptive. I think that they're very
Mm-hmm.
strong. I think like the top four, top
Yeah.
five for the seeds in financial are like really strong teams. And
Yeah.
I think Coffee House stands out just because of their win record.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like at a minimum second through fifth is like contentious. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that like the CBD versus Dewey is Stinky matchup is going to be really great. I think
Massive.
even I think even the Team Fried Chicken versus Tree Gang is going to be a good one. I think
Yeah.
Tree Gang has a real chance there because we played against them and that's Snow Prisoners team, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean
That's
Snow Prisoner, what a goat.
is like a
So
nut. But that's Snow Prisoner versus Early King in the mid lane, right?
yeah.
Those
Yeah,
two,
so that'll
those
be.
are
I think there's
two
two
like
diamond mid laners.
Yeah, two diamond mid
So
laners in that one, which is massive. Snow Prisoner spent last season playing in commercial. Early King was an executive, but like both of those guys are pretty scary. I would say, I
yeah,
mean, maybe that's just the virtue of that literally being diamond. But I mean, Team Fried Chicken, I think
yeah.
Vexrax is also a good person to point out. Massive jungler on
Hmm.
the side of Team Fried Chicken. And when you have that strong of a jungle mid, it's like you get teams to
Hmm.
play around that type of style. But I think Tree Gang has a pretty strong jungle mid too, don't they?
Um, yeah, yeah, I would say so. Well, like I really wanted to like look at with Tree Gang was actually their bot lane.
Mm.
It's Rhyneal and Cinnabon Bun, or there might
Yeah,
be
yeah,
Safer. They're Ezreal Yumi players, which disgusting. But
yeah.
you ban Ezreal, and they still play the game well, so I respect that
Yep,
at
you
least.
have to respect it
Um,
then.
so I yeah I think that's it's a solid team all around. It's not just Snow
Mm-hmm.
Prisoner and four wards. It's Snow Prisoner and like some real threats.
Real threats, yep.
So uh yeah, that's gonna be good and fun to watch, especially because it's the diamond
Yeah.
versus diamond mid lane matchup. So that's hypey.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. And then I guess we're
Yeah.
getting into Elventus Cypress versus Popeye's Parrots, who are two teams, which I think
Two
are
new
both
teams.
pretty great. Two new
Yeah.
teams, yeah. So I love the influx of new teams, especially in financial. I think
Yeah.
it's been really great to kind of see them acclimate to the LBLCS, and it being my
100%.
first season last season, kind of knowing how it is to like come in as a newcomer to like this like huge like kind of established organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can be a little intimidating, but I would say that they've all made that transition really well. Coffee
Yeah.
House in particular, just because they're dropping memes and
They just,
trash
yeah, they
talk and
just
they're
like
bantering with us, which is a whole bunch of fun. So
morphed immediately because I believe they were going to join last season, but they like had just missed the deadline. But even then, I
oh
don't think
yeah,
it
that
was
sucks.
I don't think it was these five players, but I think they ended up joining. But I think Popeye's Paris is interesting to me because like I'm like doing my quick scourge of the financial stats to like just get an
Hmm.
idea of the team. But they've got a couple of FFs against like top teams, specifically Team Fried Chicken and Coffee House, teams
Coffee
they
House,
just
yeah.
haven't played. So I'm kind of interested in how they line up against the rest of the league.
Right, because obviously if they FF, then like you don't actually see them in the head-to-head matchup. So like you don't know. It could go either way.
It really
Um,
could.
yeah. And then I do want to talk like I think like we should like highlight that like Team Fried Chicken is like just
Mm-hmm.
like they've taken games off of like top teams. They beat
Yep.
Popeye's Parrots 2-0 and that like I just think that like it's important to like
Yep.
note that like
They're pretty
they're
good.
they're they're pretty good. I think
they're
like
pretty good.
Coffee House gets a lot of hype and it's well deserved. Like don't get me wrong,
Super
but
well
I think
deserved.
like
Yeah.
all the teams in financial, at least in the like top 4 or 5, like
Mm-hmm.
deserve a ton of hype and a ton of like support.
Yeah, 11th Cypress, I know Dreadful is the captain, and he's a pretty,
Yep.
like, beefy top laner from what
Yeah,
I've
he picked Darius
realized.
against us, so I respect that.
Yep, I feel like that is
I
one way
like
to
I
do
was
it.
like I was like when I was doing my scouting against Aventus Cyprus, I was like, this guy plays a ton of Darius, but he hasn't picked Darius in an LBLCS match, even when it's
So
OP.
it's
So there's no
okay.
way he picks Darius, right? So I don't ban Darius, and I see the Darius get locked in, and I was like, well,
Shit.
sorry, little.
Yeah, that is it's not one of the best feelings. You're like, this isn't disrespect by not banning it. It's just a calculated risk, and then they just walk all over you with it. It was like, it was disrespect. My apologies.
Yep.
This is the
Yep.
sad strive of being a captain. Happens to the best of us, man.
Yeah. That's like pretty much all that I have for financial.
Yeah.
I'd say
So,
that it's just going to be very exciting, and I think that the playoffs are going to be a total blast. And I think
mhm.
it's very tentative, but I think PCE and Coffee House play next Wednesday, so a week from
Ooh,
today, because today's Wednesday, right? Today's Hump Day, so
yes, it is.
yeah,
A week from
yep.
today. Now I'm going to put you under the microscope. What are your round one predictions?
My
As
round
far
one
as
predictions.
yep, just round one, not like losers
Well,
round one or losers
obviously
round two. Just
Panther
round one.
Core upsets Coffee House for sure.
Obviously,
Um,
no way you could
we
bet
send them
against
to
your
the
own
lower
team.
bracket. We're gonna make
Mm-hmm.
him. We're gonna make him suffer a little bit. Put the heat on him a little bit.
Right, right, right.
Let's see here. Uh, I think I think the seeding has it. So like the higher
Mm-hmm.
seed beats the lower seed, except
Yeah.
I think matches 2, 3, and 4. So that's everybody except for 1 versus 8.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're like those are really contentious matches, especially
Right.
round match 2, which is CBD versus Dewey
Yeah.
Stinky. I think that's going to be really contentious. Well, obviously it's going to be contentious because it's seeds 4 and 5, but like
Yep.
it's going to be really contentious just because of that. And I think that those are two really strong teams, and yeah, I want to it's Dewey versus Bopes. So
Yeah, that is up. That's gonna be a banger. That's just gonna be a really good series. It's weird having a playoffs in a league where Buggle is in the league and then Buggle's
mm-hmm.
not in playoffs because I just love talking about he's a game changer, but like
Yeah, I
he's
love
not,
Buggle.
but he's not here, and it's kind of weird. But I'm
It's so
acclimated to it
sad.
at this
I
point.
think
It
it's
is
because
sad.
like the team had to FF so many matches, so it's like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
it's
think like
unfortunate.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They could have taken your spot. No offense. That could have definitely been a really
Yeah,
interesting
no, yeah,
the
definitely
fight for
eight
the
seed.
eighth
Eight
seed.
seed. Eight seed. We were sweating. We were like, "Are we making playoffs or what here?"
That would
But
have
yeah,
been
no, like
weird.
little. I will say one thing is that little quit league because he's in school now,
Ah,
so we're doing a little shuffling.
mm.
I
Just
won't
a
reveal
little
exactly what
shuffling.
yet.
Just
Just
a
a little,
little.
honestly, just a little shuffling.
All right. Would it?
But
So
yeah.
is it a little shuffling or are you shuffling little? I want to like clarify.
No, little like isn't even playing. But we are doing a
Unfortunate.
little shuffling. Yeah, it
Gotcha.
is
Gotcha.
unfortunate
Gotcha.
because I really like the guy and playing with him is it's
Mm-hmm.
a total blast. He's so funny. So yeah, little, if you listen
Unfortunate.
to this, I miss you. We miss you. Come back to us.
Agreed. Come back to us a little. I'm gonna just like rapid fire. Coffee House
Yep.
over PC Elite. Big sorry, but
How could you?
I think it's hard to bet against that team. And I've
It's
got
so hard to bet
Papoba.
against that team.
Papoba's in my blood. He's a Trundle player. I'm a Trundle player. It happens. I have to just agree with him. I've got Canadian beer drinkers over Evil Rival Dojo. Um, I'm gonna go Tree Gang over Team Fried Chicken for my one upset. I feel like it's always
Okay.
I've learned from March Madness you always have to have like at least one upset just to like throw your
Now
hat in
that's
the ring.
facts.
Yeah. And 11 to Cypress over Popeye's Parrots because Dreadful's an absolute chad.
True.
Um
All right.
yeah,
I like it.
that's a interesting one. So, let's see. Let's talk about commercial. Obviously the merged playoffs. They've gotten pretty far into their playoffs.
Yep.
We've
Ego curb
seen
sitting in
yep, ego
semifinals, ready to just
dude.
destroy
Yes,
whoever takes
sir.
over Anima
I
versus Sensor
was
Randall's, because that's Ponta's team.
that's
That's my boy,
Ponta.
the
That was Ponta.
protege.
As
I
someone
love
who
Ponta.
played as someone who played jungle in econ for last season, jeez
Hmm.
Louise, there is something to say. I ran awards, and when I tell you I was physically shocked that Ponta basically got no votes
Ponta got
for
slept
any.
on.
He completely slept on for the all econ teams. I think both Serenity junglers made it. It was like the craziest thing. Although, to be fair, econ had a ridiculous crop of junglers that are all having like all had like crazy seasons. Ponta included. Mr. Dying Duck had
Hmm.
an interesting season on what was the team? I think it was Give Me Eggs.
No, Give Me X is his current team. It was
Yeah, Give Me Eggs. But
God,
then it
how
was
do I not
Wandom.
remember this? We
Wandom.
played them and they took a game. Wandom, yeah, they took a
Yeah,
game off of
Wandom.
us, and we were like sweating. We were like, oh, we have to beat them twice now
Dive will
in
never.
playoffs. So
Wandom, Mr. Dying Duck will never let me live this down. I think he actually just went like 20-0 on Shaco against me and has not let me
hmm
live it down since. It was absolutely ridiculous. He had a ridiculous season. Swagger 420 and what's the other jungler? There are two junglers. Swagger,
it
because you
was
played
Swagger
against them in
420
finals.
69. We did. It was Swagger 420 69, and it was also something that began with S, I think.
Yeah, it was something that
Unless
began
I'm
with
wrong.
S. No, it was definitely something because they were both S. They played different games depending on what side. I'm gonna super scroll through the economy results because I
Oh
will
yeah,
not be made
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
fool of. It's not
It
me.
was
I'm not the one.
I feel bad forgetting his name because I think I was on the All Star. No, I was on the All Star team with Swagger.
Yeah,
His
yeah, yeah.
name was uh
Um,
Starstro 64.
yeah, Starstro 64, and they literally had like one of the funniest personality dynamics because Starstro is
Yeah,
like super down to earth and was
yeah,
calm,
very
and
chill.
Swagger was a troll.
Yeah,
Like
I
in
played
the
an in-house with Swagger. He played TK jungle, and he's like, "If this guy
yeah,
invades
I
me,
was
he's just gonna
there.
get
I
blown."
was
I was like,
I was there. That's dude.
"Oh,
It
what a guy!"
was yeah, an absolute chat of a man. I really hope he returns next season because he's just a blast to talk to and interact with. But more
Mhm.
on commercial. Unfortunately, they had to actually FF their series against Anima, which leaves us with Sensei Randall's versus Anima. Now, I casted Anima early in the season, and the first thing I heard when I started casting, I don't know if it was with Buggle or Lechance, it was probably with Buggle, but Buggle referred to Animus ADC Dinovision and their captain as LeBron James. And we saw in that best of two series, Dinovision's a really fucking good player. Like,
Mhm.
there were some Ash Arrow. I think he shot a point blank, like an almost point blank Ash Arrow in Nocturnal and just got Nocturne and won the game off of it. And I
That's
think
insane. Yeah,
I actually lost my mind. Dinovision is a different breed, but Sensei Randall's is a monster of a team. Literally 5 players that terrify me to the end of the earth.
yep, I agree. Uh, Cooney, my boy. So, uh, I love Cooney. He's a ton of fun to play with. He's
Mm-hmm.
filled in a couple of Panther Elite like norms or flex games.
Right.
Yeah. So I got a root for Cooney, but I'm pretty sure Dynavision also was like one of the people who was maybe gonna be on the Panther Corps recruits team.
Mm.
And then eventually I don't remember exactly how it went down. Because I was worried
Mm.
about my own team at that point. I was
Yeah,
letting Marshmallow handle all the roster decisions. Yeah.
that's interesting.
So yeah.
That's scary to think about because PCR is already a pretty scary team. Although I think they've gotten bounced down. I'm not super sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think they've gotten
Yep,
bounced.
I'm
Yeah, they've
pretty
gotten
sure
bounced down by now.
they're out of playoffs contention, or they're
Yeah,
in playoffs and then they're out now,
yeah, they've
which
gotten
is
bounced
sad. I
out.
love my boys.
Indeed, sad. Yeah, they had to play Sensei Randall's. Bless their hearts. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, I think there's Anima Sensei Randall's. I will say, if Anima wins, it's going to be ADC div, but I needed to check something. Yeah, their um top laner, Kurox,
Hmm.
easily I think one of the better rocks. Like, cause I use this term. I think when I was writing about PC Elite, I like used the word rock like 19 times when I was talking about Hooler or Hassan now.
Yep.
But dude, when I like rocks, Kiriox is a rock. This dude will literally get solo killed in lane, come back to lane, and then just play it even. And it's like, what happened here? That
Hmm.
people are missing. ANI Poro, their mid laner, is like the artillery mage player. Although I have some controversial opinions, but like Lux, Ziggs, Vel'Koz, Xerath, even like just non-stop barrage of champs that just fling skill shots at you. Falling Numb is their support, who I think Falling Numb is like I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this. Falling Numb is like the opposite of like the Jackie Boy Ram Cannon dynamic because it was like from the outside it was like Jackie Boy goes and does whatever he wants and Ram Cannon is like I will output the damage. And
Yeah.
I will just play to match your style. Falling Numb will basically just play whatever Dinovision needs him to do. Dinovision's playing Caitlyn, he'll pick up the Braum. Dinovision's playing Ezreal, he'll pick up the Alistar, and he kind of just matches that he matches his ADC's energy in a really scary way that I think could be super interesting to see when we get the Versia Sloth Man. Like that is gonna be fireworks in the bot lane.
I agree. I think Frisia and Slothman are like a really good dynamic duo, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
like just to your point about following them being able to kind of like match whatever Dino Vision needs, I think it's like that's so valuable in bot lane because just speaking from
Mm-hmm.
my experience as a support and because I used to play ADC as well,
Right.
and I've been like slowly picking it back up just to kind of keep my
Mm-hmm.
skills sharp and also to kind of say like it like because I feel like playing it like as a support for an ADC, you should
Mm-hmm.
play the other role to kind
Yeah.
of get a feel for like, oh, like this is something that I do that when I see other supports do it and I'm playing ADC, I hate it. Like so
Yep.
like just an example of it is like like using your relic stacks on like certain minions that it's like you should like ping or communicate like which minion you're going to use it on
Yeah.
in like the first wave because sometimes I'll go for like the first and third minions and then like my
Mm-hmm.
like support or relic like the third minion and then like
Mm-hmm.
I will miss like the second minion and then I'll be down a minion, right? And like it
Yeah.
makes like almost like it makes like a non-zero difference, but like it's still a difference. So like I don't know, I'm getting up on a tangent, so I'm just gonna wrap this
Yeah, no,
up.
no,
But
but I get it. It's
having that support and that synergy is like
mm-hmm.
it's just really valuable, and I think that's what like made me and Ram like so like lethal in the bot lane
Mm-hmm.
is just like us being able to kind of like skill check our opponents consistently, and like even if we were equal in skill or even if they had the edge in skill, our
Mm-hmm.
synergy was just better than everybody else's in bot lane in economy last season. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was just like absurd because he would make calls too
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was a pretty dominant voice. Like I love shot calling. I love like being the person who like makes the decisions in that regard, but like
Right, right,
he
right.
had like a really strong voice too, and he would like check me sometimes. He would be like, no, 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 don't go in here, and I'd be like, okay, okay, you're right, you're right. So like
Gotcha.
I don't know, like having the like capacity to be like go in here or don't go in there, like that,
Mm-hmm.
like I think that like if we listen to anima comms, I think we would kind of hear some of that too. Is like
Definitely.
the just the synergy and just like the coordination basically.
Yeah, I get that. I think the also super interesting dynamic is like Falling Numb is adapting to Dynavision's different playstyles, but Versia Slothman I think has had to have one of the most night and day season to season matchups because you're going from Ruffian, who is like red all the time, go lights, slam the button,
Yep.
never like
Yep.
never let up,
Oh,
to
believe me, I
Versia
know.
to Versia, who's kind of not like completely like blue, but very cool, opportunist,
Right.
focus on winning lane. Yeah, you can slam your laner, but like focus on just winning your lane first, then start pushing your advantages. Make sure you get your advantage that way. And I think actually um it's really interesting because Slothman has succeeded pretty decently with both of those styles. Although Sensei Randall's last season, you can have a whole conversation about commercial, but this season they are one of, if not the scariest team in commercial right now. But we're doing a lot of talking about the bot lane. I like Anima's solo laners.
Mm-hmm.
Sensei Randall's solo laners are almost on a completely different level, though.
Yeah.
uh,
Cooney and
Ku-
Shrouds.
yeah, Cooney is like just has been a mainstay in LBLCS for the last 2-3 seasons, I think, and has been absolutely like bone rattling, and all of them can basically play anything. I saw like there's a game where Shrouds was playing top and Cooney was playing mid, and
Mm-hmm.
Cooney is like supposed to be the top laner, and Shrouds is. But I saw like Cooney was playing like Fizz and Corky. I've seen Cooney literally shit stomp people in like Karma. Um, it is really
Yep.
hard for me to say that Cooney won't bring the pain to either. I think way better chance to smash ANI Poro than Kyriox, but in the
Mm-hmm.
same vein, Shrouds is interesting to me because like as a fan of the LBLCS, Shrouds is like a fan favorite. Always love to see him play. I think it's super awesome.
Yep.
As an analyst, a little shaky. is like not always super pop off, but when it's good, it's
Mhm.
good.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah. And I
there's
think like
this
what's I
really
think like
interesting
another
dynamic.
thing that we should mention about Shrouds is that
Mm-hmm.
he can draw bans because I mean he's hiding
Yeah,
Shrouds. That's an Akali
he's
player. You
hiding
already know. You
shrouds.
don't even
That's
need to op.gg to like
yeah,
know that he plays Akali. And like you see matches where he gets Akali the first game and it's banned the
mm-hmm.
second game, and it's like yeah, it should
Yeah,
stay on the ban list.
yeah,
There's a reason. First of all, there's a reason he names himself Hiding Shrouds, and second of all,
yeah. I'd
there's a reason people
imagine.
banned it against him.
Yeah, if I named
So
myself Ice Pillar, I feel like you'd be a bit remiss if you didn't ban Trundle or like Casket or not Cask, Explosive Cask. The idea is that if you're willing to name yourself after a character, chances are you should probably ban that character, especially on
yep.
this level of play where I feel like comfortability goes over versatility, I guess is the word, or like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
chance. Yeah,
Even if it's a bad pick in the meta, like the comfort
yeah,
makes up for it. Is that what you're
yeah.
trying to say?
General, yeah, something along those lines. It's like, yeah, this is a bad Gragas angle, but I'm gonna lock it anyway because it's funny. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right, let's get to the rest of the commercials because we just talked about that series for like a million years, but it's also the last quarterfinal series. Eagle Curb already talked a little bit. They beat Cloud9, who's like the fan favorite, but Eagle Curb came in seated 12th.
12th. Yep. That's my
One
boy.
two.
That's the Ponta diff right there.
This is if anything, this is like the Ponta Revenge Tour. If his economy run isn't enough, he's like, I'm gonna go to a different league and do it again, which is
Yep.
terrifying to me because Ponta's a really good jungler. But the
He
I
is.
I love really good like single player teams, but they're not beating a team that I think is super well rounded in Cloud9 if they're just a single player team. These are
No, I agree.
yeah, these are easily like five good players. I mean, just like once again, the quick scourge of the match history because came completely prepared. Um, Top laner is an absolute chad. Same because like these like solo lane dominance teams are super common in commercial. They scare the shit out of me
Hmm.
in econ, but like generally in commercial, it's just like teams have really good laners. um, I just saw something I'm gonna address when we get to that team because I was looking through the
Yep.
matches, kind of confused, but I'll get there. But like, it's just these teams with really strong lanes. But what's more scary than really strong lanes is really strong lanes and a top like two jungler, and that is what you're
Yep.
getting with Eagle Curve because they have super strong lanes and Ponta, who I'd say
Yep.
at this point could easily in back-to-back seasons has been one of the best junglers the leagues any league has had in terms of
Yeah, you
like
could go to
their
CEO
league.
and he would contend. You know,
Definitely,
like I
definitely,
mean, that
definitely.
guy's just like he has a versatile champion pool. He can play a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different styles.
Yep.
Like he's, I don't know, just like my experience with him has like been nothing but positive. Like
Yeah.
he's just he's just cracked. So like
As
every
cracked
time
as
I
he
see an
is
Ego Curb
jacked.
2-0, no, correct. Every time I see an Ego Curb 2-0, I always throw that little Panthercore emote on it because I'm like, yeah, that's my boy.
That's the homie. All right,
Hmm.
moving quickly. So I must apologize because I have not been paying the highest amount of attention to commercial that I could. But Rising Tide S Eagles seem pretty fucking good. Yeah,
No,
just
they're
just
the
an
second seed,
observation.
so
Yeah,
they're obviously pretty decent.
they're
Um,
pretty decent,
yeah.
I'd imagine. They're definitely bringing the pain. I think they've put away some teams that have had a decent amount of hopes. They 2-0'd a Rose Bros, put away a Sublime Feline. I
Hmm.
think they're interesting in that aspect. But even I think during the season, they were one of, if not the best team in their commercial division since Randall's was in the other one. Um, and this is a team that I think it's one of those teams that's just well rounded, that focuses on picking who they want to beat you and running with
Yep.
that, which I think is super important for really good teams because I think that's something that I think That's a team structure you don't see too often. I think like when I think back to really good teams that have won, Acclivity is a really good example of a team that just had five
Mhm.
players that could each beat you. Like Roll Swap was nuts. Lobats is a god. Um,
Not in my
Storm,
solo queue games with them, but yeah.
Stormblade, really good. Oh,
I'm
bot
so
lane's
sorry,
leaving me.
Lofax. That was a low blow.
Really low bix. Um, but like I think that top side was ridiculous. The bot lane's leaving me, but they were absolutely nuts. I am totally not speed scrolling through the CEO games to see who their bot lane was. Definitely
I've been
not
speed scrolling
me.
through games this entire podcast, so you're good.
You're
Don't worry about
you're a
it.
god. But yeah, okay, thank you. Munger and FB Dono. FB Dono I remember specifically was ridiculous, and especially in a season where CEOs like all pro stats or all pro stats, all CEO stats were like skewed because teams vote for their players, and you had a lot
Yep.
of really good newcomers that didn't get
Yep.
the votes. Like FB Dono still got an all pro spot, which I think is like just so much. He had a newcomer win MVP, all these different things, but it was just crazy. Um, so and those types of teams that are just like five really strong players. I don't know why I went to last season for a good example. Coffee House, great example of a team that has five amazing players. Sensei Randall's another
Yep.
team that has five amazing players. These teams are generally very successful, and Rising Tide is similar in that sense. And I'm super excited to see what they can do against their opponent. I'm totally not scrolling to double check who it is. Oh, sick! I get to talk about actual
Yeah.
leaks now. So I was looking at
Yeah. Yeah.
their
Yeah.
game against N20
Like speaking
Druids.
of like, yeah. Yeah.
Their game
I
against
mean, go
N20
ahead.
Druids, their mid laner played Ignite AP Sejuani mid.
You're right about that. And
And
won.
yeah, they won. That is what has me very shooketh right now. And I don't know if you've seen the Silver Drillers draft before. I'm a fan of a little bit of trolling. I'm a fan of things that don't make sense, and I love to see it when teams that aren't in our division do it because it just makes to them it has to make more sense. So it's super sick to
Right.
see that, but they could definitely give a challenge. I think they're a
Mhm.
well-rounded team, a lot of good players from last season on their team isn't Canadian beer drinkers. This is a different team.
Mhm.
It's Grim Senpai's team.
Yeah. I mean, I think like just like based on seeding alone, you can kind of tell a
Mm-hmm.
story of like actual apes because like they're 11th seed, they just 2-0'd the third seed, and they're
Yep.
about to play against the second seed in semifinals. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with EcoCurb, who just 2-0'd the fourth seed and is about to play against presumably the first seed in
Yep.
semifinals. Like these are two teams which have like gone against seeding against what the seeding would have you believe to
Mm-hmm.
really succeed. So I
Yep.
think that they're really I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah. Super
And I
excited.
think
They
like
actually
I mean
played really.
they handily beat
Yeah.
Druids
It was
in
not
the
close.
first match and
Mm-hmm.
like had a banger in the second match, but with an AP Sejuani mid, and they won. And so it's like, damn, what can they do when they're not playing AP Sejuani mid? Like
Exactly.
obviously, like
This is
apparently it's
crazy.
go 20
Up.
and 3.
Exactly. Like that's terrifying to think about because they're pretty good, and that's super obvious. So I'm interested in how that series turns out.
Yeah.
Sensei Randall's versus Anima is a series that I'm just like I checked streaming schedules to see really quickly if it's been scheduled. Has not, but Rising Tide S Eagles and actual apes is going on Thursday next week, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think about. That is going that hopefully that will be a massive game and it'll be a good one. I'm just super excited for those two
Yep.
teams to play. But that's about it for commercial. So we get to talk about the monster that is the economy playoff bracket.
The beast.
Oh
The
man.
21 match beast.
Yeah, this thing is massive. Now, luckily, I'm here. I've been, for better or for worse, have been doing extensive research into basically each and every one of these teams. Um, and all I can say is all of these series are absolute bangers.
Yeah, it seems
Every
like it.
single last one. Um, for just like the fastest rundown I could muster, Better Apex and C&D are 2 out of 3 Group A teams, and Group A had this really funny thing where their 3 teams, their 3 top teams, only lost to each other and didn't lose a single game outside of that. Like I
Hmm.
actually think all of their games against each other were 1-1. And then as far as the 2 bottom teams, which are Limitless Eclipse and Team Equinox, they both lost every game that wasn't against each other. The team that is missing from this group is NA Speedrun because they had to drop out. I was actually super excited because their jungler played Yi in a game and I went nuts. Um, like I
Yep.
actually just lost my mind. But C&D is the home to XL Macro, or is it XL Macro now? Was it? I think it's
I
XL
believe
Macro
so.
now. Yeah, XL Macro, absolutely ridiculous top laner, but alongside him is like I think super strong mid lane and their bot lane, who I think is actually kind of ridiculous. Their support, I think, is Reaganwood, and like Jackie Boy, I'd imagine your nightmare as a support is going up against like a Karma Lulu 2 trick.
It's not my
That
nightmare
like
because you can just ban 2 champs.
yeah, but then you're looking at like you're like Exomacker, right? Exomacker is like a fudged Gwyn, like basically not a Gwyn one trick, but like very Gwyn inclined. Um, so you're forced to ban the Gwyn, and then you kind of get caught up in okay to force to ban 2 other champs from one player, and you just get caught in this loop. I think it's super duper
Hmm.
interesting. Um, but then you take their um ADC putters, who's like an Ezreal OTP, and then you get locked into this like, okay, cool, we have to let. So you basically pick one of your 4 poisons, and this is off the top of my head. You've got the Gwyn, you've got the Ezreal, then you've got the Karma and the Lulu. So one of these
All
is
right.
getting
All
through, and
right.
all of them would
Here's all
suck.
right. You'll first of all, if it was me, I would let the Gwen through, and here's why.
Right.
I don't lane against it, so I don't really care.
That would be for little to deal with, I'd imagine.
That's for little to deal with.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's fair, but it's a very multi-threat team. This is a team full of like guys
Yes.
that are
Yeah.
very scary. Um, that leads us to Better at Apex. Now, for me, Better Apex is a super interesting team. One, because their name is funny, and two, because their top laner is
Yep.
a absolute giga chad. We're talking like Hawaiian. We're talking like Altazi levels of giga chad in
Oh,
econ,
I
and
love
we haven't
Altazi. What a guy.
we haven't yeah, awesome dude,
This is
haven't
this
seen
is
this
Murph
level of
Turkleton
dominance.
we're talking about, right? Which, first of
Yes,
all,
Murph took.
what a fantastic
Oh
name.
my god, if the name doesn't let you know who the hell you're messing with, him absolutely smurfing games. That I think the streamed game was them versus NA Speedrun. He was actually 1v9ing. Like no disrespect to any of it, but he was actually like it was ridiculous to watch him just like almost 1v9
The
on
man doesn't want to
Cho'Gath.
lose.
Man does not want to lose, and it shows. But as far as other players goes, Nisashi is a actually super sick support. One of the better ones I think in econ, and I
Hmm.
think deserves a lot of credit because they have one of the highest KPs. I've got the stats. I've got the stats. I run the econ stats. I've
You got the
these in
stats. I
front
don't
of me.
have the
I got
stats.
the
So you're gonna
stats.
have to carry me on that
I
field.
got you here. I will send you the stats just so you can
Oh,
have reference to
perfect.
what I'm looking at. These are like a little outdated, but they're not like super outdated. They've been, they're fine.
They gave
You
you a good
also see
enough
me.
gist.
Yeah, they give a great idea of what's happening. The things highlighted in yellow are like minimum lower than minimum games played, but that's not the point, right? Nisashi is an absolute like KP monster all over the map. Same goes for Bomo, their mid laner, which when a mid laner has higher KP than their support, that tells you something. Either that mid laner
Yep.
smurfing or that mid laner's all over the map. Permaburn is a super sick, reckless esque carry where it's like, let my team do the work and I will seat back. And that's not even talking about their captain, KYB Cat, who I think is a pretty good jungler and always brings the fight when he can to try and like just
Hmm.
get the edge. So I think there's a super interesting dynamic at work. I think really strong solo lanes and when your jungle and support are just as good at impacting the map as these two are, it builds a team of four players that aren't super duper fun to go against. And brings a lot of it brings a lot of scare into it. But I will do I'll do a very that was my stomach if you heard that, but there do very quick run of C and D. And the one thing you have to know about C and D is that 1 liter of Coke, their mid laner, has the highest amount of
Hmm.
kills in econ.
You're right
They
about that.
murder. They do murder, and they do it good. One of obviously
Yeah.
one of the best teams in Group A, and they're facing off. These are both two Group A teams that have faced off. I'm like speed scrolling to see. Yeah, when they faced each other, the second time it was a 1-1, and I believe the first time was also a 1-1, which is
So it's nice and
terrifying.
contentious.
Yeah, this could easily be a 3 game banger unless one of them got way, way, way better in like 2 weeks, which I personally doubt, but I've seen crazier things happen.
Hmm.
All right, so that should lead us straight into the second series, which is, I believe, is Group C versus Group C, right? That's Four Ponies versus Kilko. Time
Oh,
to double
yeah.
check.
Check that
All
out.
right. Yep.
Kilko is Kilko the team with various meats on it?
Yeah.
That's that speaking of great names,
Yeah, various
various
meats
meats might
is
be one of my favorite names in the LBL
when it
series.
in terms of top laners with ridiculously good names and also being absolute giga chads at the game, various meats is right next to Murph Turkleton on that list.
Murph Turkleton. Murph
Like,
Turkleton versus various meats is a matchup I want to see.
God, please. I like as a silver drillers player, I want Kiltco to lose, but as a fan, please God let them win. I want Murph Trickleton versus Various Meats. That would be the greatest series cast. That'll be the greatest series cast ever. Literally never leave the top lane. But yeah, Various Meats, Omega Good, Champion Ocean.
Hmm.
Um any and this could be taken the wrong way, but any top laner that can play Ornn at the same level they can play Akali gets like an immediate place in my heart
Yep. Yeah.
because those are like that's just the idea there is that that player is very good at swapping their playstyle and Various Meats is one of those players, a player that can carry the game, but also a player that can like sit back and let their team do the carrying. I would say, what are your before I get into the next bit? What are your like general thoughts on like teams that focus on lane dominance to kind of steamroll games? Because I feel like everybody has
Um,
like a different view on it.
I think you will always beat teams worse than you and never beat teams better than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's just kind of like, yeah, well, yeah, duh. That's how things work. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, not
It's just
really.
like yeah, it's different
Because,
because yeah.
like, I think if you play a more complicated style and you like mess it up, then you can lose against a team that's worse than you. And I think if
Mm-hmm.
you play a more complicated style and you like execute it really well, then you can beat a team that's better than you in like the
Mm-hmm.
individual skill department. So like if there was some like magical way to like
Mm-hmm.
create a number that like was accurately representative of somebody's skill, like because rank
Mm-hmm.
obviously like people climb or
Does
they
not.
don't, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and you'd have like an aggregate number, right? That was just like this team has 125 skill and this team has 130 skill. Like the team with 130 skill will always beat the 125 skill team if they just rely on like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we're just gonna smash lane and win game. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what we did with Panther Core last season. Is we were basically just like,
Yeah.
all right, we're just gonna win every lane and win in the jungle matchup, and then we're gonna win the game off of it. And we beat all the teams that were worse than us, which was happened to be most of the teams, and then we
Mm-hmm.
just lost against the team that was better than us, which happened to be the team in
Serenity.
finals. So
uh, tough stuff, you know.
yeah.
Um, that is a pretty. I think that's actually a pretty discreet way of describing how I feel about Kilko, even as a captain. And they've this is like minor salt, but also like just looking at things objectively. They've 2-0'd us twice, and both times it was because their solo laners drop kicked ours. Um,
Yep.
bro, I don't know if it's Bro Ian or Bro Ian. It's Bro
I'm pretty sure it's
IAN.
Bro Ian because I'm like 99% that like when me and Praetorian pulled me and he was like, "Hey, are you free right now?" And I was like expecting to like jump into a league game with him, and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And he's like, "Cool, help me go through the rosters and like check to see if people are smurfing." And I was like, "Okay, you just gave me like the worst job in the LBLCS." So like
So, but
Praetorian, I
yeah.
I'm drafting you Seraphine because you did this to me. But
I mean,
he so I'm pretty sure it's Bro Ian instead of
okay,
Brolan because like I
yeah,
remember like looking up Brolan and being like this guy doesn't exist, and then
yeah.
Praetorian was
It's
like
an
try Bro
I.
Ian, and I was like oh that makes
It's an
sense.
I.
So it's an
Yeah,
I.
there's another really confusing one. There's pancakes, but on the sides of his name, it looks like the little line thing
Mm-hmm.
that you can use to surround your text. It's actually just two capital I's, and that
Wow.
had me stumped for like almost 4 hours. I was so lost because I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" Either way, back on topic. Brilliant's probably the best mid laner in economy. That's a bit of a leap from where we were, but
Well, yeah, there we go. I
he
mean, he's a Heimer
just
player, and
he is a
Gangplank.
Heimer.
Hello.
He plays Yasuo. Will like various meets in Broian champion oceans. Do not care. Like banning against these guys feels like a nightmare just because they're going to pick what's best for the situation. And that's like, wow, that's scary. Especially in econ where you can like rely on pick ban phase to get an edge.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really happen. It does happen, however, when you look at the rest of the map. I think they're a very good team. They've 2-0'd us twice, but they've gotten 2-0'd by 4 ponies twice, and I'm going to get to that. Because Kiltco, Reinhardt, I think it's Reinhardt, but it's like not spelled the Overwatch way.
Right.
Bloomka and Drosos. Bloomka and Drosos are notorious for picking the same two champs. I think they've done it like
Mm-hmm.
5 times this season, or in most of their games this season. I think it's Kaisa Alistar. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I've
Um,
like Alice. The games I'm seeing, Josos picked Alistar, but then Bloomco's on Ezreal and Jin. Oh, I just clicked away because I'm an idiot. Uh,
mm-hmm.
let's see here.
I think they've picked Kaisa Alistar in a lot of their games when it's open,
Yeah.
but even when it's like Drosos will always pick Alistar if it's open. Bloomko will always pick Kaisa if it's open, and just so happens that um, it just so happens that they are also very good at do two camps together. I think Reinhardt is a bit more versatile in terms of jungle, but it's a different jungler situation. Like Eagle Curb is a good base, but like if Ponta just focused on letting his lane slam instead of like going out and being an absolute demon, then yeah, that would essentially how I'd imagine Kilko. Moving the 4 ponies, this seems fucking terrifying. Like
Mm-hmm.
actually, we've gone 1-1 with them twice, but they're oh, oh well. They're essentially what I would consider this team the best team in any other in any other division. I think they could
Hmm.
easily contest to be the best team if they were in a different league, and obviously their like skill level, rank level would match the league. I think their general team dynamic is would match and go um level with the rest of the league, if not jump over. And
Hmm.
that's because their team just evolves. They don't
Yeah.
stop changing. When Ziggs became meta, they literally picked it in every game. It wasn't banned from them. I think they swapped the way they picked their top lane. They like morph the way their draft order is. They're such an adaptable team, and I really credit that to X Overthrow, who is an amazing captain. Like, if I was doing awards for this season, which I still might, but I'm not super sure because this is a weird season. But if I had
Right.
to, Overthrow would probably be like my top one best captain right now because he is just one, a genius, two, omega nice, even when
Hmm.
like things go wrong, like just an absolute delight to work with and be around. But also a absolutely ridiculous mid laner, which is like that's basically all the good things that you could have as a player.
Right.
So I
Competent as a
think
player, nice when things go wrong, that kind of
exactly
stuff.
all those things and mixed to create a super awesome player who is very scary and part of like those conglomerate teams that are just like five players who could easily decide that they would win. Um, and I think that series will figure itself out because I think For Ponies is a good team dynamic match to Kill to Co. Just in general.
Yep.
Um, but if it's like the when a team, I think a good example is like it's pro players. It's like G2 versus FPX, right? You have really
Hmm.
super strong solo lanes, and then they get stonewalled by like a strong team. Um,
Yeah.
and I
I
think,
mean, I think
yeah, go ahead.
like if you have like a strong, I don't know, like when you see like teams with like that, like basically both are like really strong, like go head to head. I think like it really comes
Mm-hmm.
down to draft and macro.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people can kind of like meme on economy a little bit with like macro and draft. So like I'm not, it's not like a coin toss by any means. I think that
Mm-hmm.
like the teams in economy still put like a lot of work into their draft and into their macro. So I think that this is
Mm-hmm.
going to be like a situation where you see like maybe like maybe it's going to be a situation where like one person like makes a mistake and then like the game just like loses like scramble like
Mm-hmm.
snowballs from there,
Yeah.
or it's going to be like or it's going to be like 45-minute 50-minute bangers.
Yeah. I think and that's gonna be super sick. If Kiltco wins, it's gonna be because Broian and various meats go actually Super Saiyan. But moving on, so a weird thing happened with the bracket where it's Group A versus Group A, Group C versus Group C, and Group B versus Group B, which culminates in Sensei Randall's intermediate kicking squids. This
Mm-hmm.
team is like you weren't around, but it's a mix of lordy lordy, I cannot remember the name. It's a mix of an old econ team and what was a lot of I think I'm gonna like speed run figuring out the structure of this team because I was speaking with Buggle on it. Um, cool. All right. So it's most of liver. It's I figured it out. Don't worry about it. It's a mix of liver let die and then the season I think three, the Happy Canadians team.
So what, Happy
Um,
Canadians you said?
yeah, the Happy Canadians and Liver Let Die, and it's basically those two teams that like the
Oh, it's
only like
waffles. Get them while they're
yeah,
hot.
it's Wopals. My brain says Wopels, but I know it's waffles. Um, but like the only
Oh,
like
and Rat
huge
House. I
person.
like Rat
Oh
House.
yeah,
Other guy.
Rat House. Rat House. I just had the players.
Zavia. Zavia?
Kev,
Shaba.
Zavia, because X is
Zavia?
weird, or something like that.
And 19
Zavia,
Step.
yeah, 19 steps, Wopels.
Which I
Kev has
want to know what
allergies.
19 Steps is a reference to.
No idea.
Do you know?
Um,
No idea? Okay.
no. Um, but this is, I think both of these teams are super interesting because N20 Barbarians, to me, okay, so N20 Barbarians has some pretty crazy players.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Earlier, I made the very bold claim that Bro Ian was the best mid laner. I will
Yep.
now bring that claim into question because Asakura has one of the highest kills one of the highest kill totals, one of the highest damages per minute, one of the highest golds per minute, and one of the highest CS per minute.
Mm-hmm.
Asakura is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And in terms of statistically and watching them play, Asakura actually just feels like they bring such a visceral shift. If they get ahead, it really feels like things are going wrong for the opponent.
Right.
There are plenty of players like that. I think Blue Card Hype is a great example, and a lot of them are mid laners, but like Blue Card Hype is a great example. Um, I think Yo Daddy's Daddy is an amazing example from last season. These players that
I
if they
love
get
your
a
daddy's daddy.
yeah, an
Did he
absolute
hit
chat
plat?
of a
I'm
dude.
pretty sure he hit plat.
I hope he did. 100%
I'm
deserves
searching up
it.
right now.
But like these
No, he was
absolutely
gold 1 for a while. He's gold 2 now. Okay.
ah but like
I'll duo
absolutely
with him, don't worry.
that's what I like to see. These like Chad players who will just decide a game. I think Asakura, a great example of Asakura going crazy was I think they were facing Team Nut. Asakura had been quiet for the entire game and then got like a triple kill on Vagar and the game was over
Mm-hmm.
within like 10 minutes. And it was like, wow, and that's just like players that control it. Um, and I think that's like probably the best way to put it because that it's going to be a battle of this is another game where I do think N20 has a very strong team overall, but they have very specific stars. While Sensei Randall's is like a conglomerate team, and they've been winning
Mm-hmm.
teams. They've been winning games like that. I think their game against N20 Barbarians is going to come down to draft. I think and in-game decisions because I think that happens a lot in econ where teams that are doing well or winning or are ahead, it's always up to the losing team to make a play or kind of make a decision that will put them back into the game. And if you have players that can make those types of plays, super important to do so.
Oh,
So yeah,
absolutely.
that's going to be an interesting
Yeah,
one.
I think the value of somebody who can make a play that brings you back into the game is like
Mm-hmm.
cannot be understated at all. Like I think it's like because especially in 5 settings, like in solo queue it's a little
Mm-hmm.
different because like throws happen all the time, but in 5 settings
Yeah.
like throws don't happen that much.
Yep.
Um, and so like to have a player who can like keep a level head and say like, look, this is our way back into the game. We're gonna do X,
Mm-hmm.
Y, Z. We fight them at this Drake. Like we give up this objective for this in favor of this objective. Like somebody who can just like
Mm-hmm.
keep their head straight and like knows what to do and takes the team and says like, this is what we're going to do. Let's go do it. And the team says, okay, cool,
Yep.
and does it, and then they win. Like that's that's
Massive.
that's a high value individual right there.
Oh yeah, super important. And I think N20 has always had that level of structure. And I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't assume a team that's put together by Buggle um, doesn't have that level of player, or at least that level of influence.
Yeah.
So I think it's super interesting to see how that match turns out. Now, technically, I am not legally obligated to start the conversation on the match after this one
Mm-hmm.
for fairness reasons.
That's fine.
Otherwise, I would be very confident
Mm-hmm.
because the next game, I believe, yeah, okay, double checking. The next game is Team Nut versus Silver Drillers.
Silver Drillers. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I
So all I can say is good luck.
Thank you. I think both of these teams. Talk about my team from an objective third person point of view. Um, I think both of these teams. Oh, I just kicked the door. Both of these teams
Mm-hmm.
are pretty interesting in that they very much utilize catalysts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I think, but in different ways. Team Nut is very focused on Full Metal, who I think is an absolutely insane player. One of the highest kill participations in all of econ. One of the highest vision score of a jungler in econ. Um, it's like this is a player that is going to impact the map no matter what happens. And that idea is super important going into playoffs because um, when you have high impact players that can help the team to a certain point, it's super important. Whereas Silver Drillers, I think, does it differently. Um, they kind of the word I'm gonna use here is abuse, and I think that's a very specific word because like I feel like
Right.
when you say someone abuses a champ, is that um there's like when you say someone's abusing a champ, are they just picking it every once in a while and being really good with it, or are they picking it every single time and doing it well every single time? And in the same way, Silver Drillers picks one player and then abuses that one player's stability for the other four players to do whatever the fuck they want. And this
Yeah.
is pretty evident if you look at drafts because you'll see Alawi, Trindamere, Nasus support. Um, the list could go on, but the point's been made. The champion picks that are like focused on taking over or focused on having making sure that someone doesn't lose because that's what happens when you pick because that's what happens when you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to kind of throw draft. You have to look at one person on your team and go, I know we're all it's like having a designated driver. We're all going to get drunk, but you
Yeah.
can't for the sake of the team. You got to take one for the team
Right.
here, and that is generally the idea behind Silver Drillers with a little bit of insider's point of view, but I think this is going to be a super good game, and I
Yep.
think if it does get streamed, you'd be a dummy not to watch it.
I agree.
All right, I think that moves us on to losers, which is more interesting because I think it is Group C versus Group C and Group A versus Group A, as I assumed. Um, Fly High Honda Civic is the remains of Wandom without their two best players, not Murphy, Bentley Knight,
Bentley
and
Knight and Dying Duck.
yeah, it is Swag, I'm Kinetic, and Murphy Man, who but does not play. I think they have a different top laner who was also their sub top laner last season, but for God's sake, I cannot remember his name. I'm going to scroll
It's all
very
good.
quickly and figure it out because we just played against them, so I know I have it. It is Sumhawked exactly, but they've got some. I think they've got some actually interesting players. I think Vanilli Dilly, but he's only Vanilli now. Also, an amazing name, Vanilli
Mm-hmm.
Dilly. Oh, come on, that's great. Um,
I mean, yeah. I mean, you
the
gotta have a good name.
always. But Vanilli is actually a crazy jungler, even though like I've only ever seen him play like Diana Kha'Zix, really sick jungler, um, and generally can take over the game on those two picks. P1AN or PN, I think is a super cool mid laner. Noah Spicy Cow
Mm-hmm.
is like the mid lane slash ADC substitute for Swag, because they basically swap between the two positions. But I think he brings a flair to the team that properly replaces like duck and perma invading, if that makes any sense. It just like
Yeah.
properly introduces like a good amount of aggression, and then kinetic is still a rel one trick at heart.
Yep. I respect that. That's a good champion to one trick.
It is true. Well, yeah, I'd imagine you'd respect that, bro.
Yeah.
One trick. I'd imagine that is something you'd respect. You like you snort lines
I
and
had
are
something
like, yeah, I can
insane, like
flash
an
R.
80% win rate in like 15 to 20 games on Rel, like for the first part of the
Jeez.
season. Like Rel is just near and dear to
Champ
my
was,
heart.
to be fair, the champ was busted. So
Oh, this was after the champ was busted. This is just Jackie
I don't
Boy special
know.
right there.
Jackie Boy special snorter line jump into 5 people with no follow up. I believe you. I believe
Mm-hmm. I give my team nightmares.
you. Yeah. I mean, I do too. When you have Gragas E flash, what am I supposed to do? Not
You
use
have
it?
to do. You have to use it.
What am I supposed to do? Not use it? I can
I'm
catch
glad
up the
we're on the
ADC
same
here.
page.
Exactly. I can imagine that.
Anyway, the games.
Yeah, the games. Their opponent is Northern Storm. So Northern Storm has some of the more interesting players. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sona, NS Sona is a Lux Seraphine 2 trick in the mid lane.
Okay.
Say what you will about that. Um,
Lux Seraphine. Okay.
Lux Seraphine, I believe my players, I don't agree with them, but the mid laners on my team have gone as far to call it boring. But I think there is a certain amount of fun to have against Lux Seraphine.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
I will also refrain from following up on that statement. But it's that champ specialty, but also a pretty strong Oriana player if those 2 picks do get taken away. And same goes
Mm-hmm.
for their Akali. I think the real bread and butter comes to their top side. I think NS Toto is their jungler, super good Sejuani player, and as a Sejuani enthusiast, I really do believe this, but also like has a ridiculous Zac that like hard carries early. And just has so much impact on the map. And Toto is
Yep.
like the best Kale player in Econ since Altazi.
And Altasi's since graduated.
Yeah, he's graduated a while ago. We've been waiting for a proper Kale player, but I think we've got it in Toto.
You gotta
Super
have
good.
one.
Yeah, our first game against NS, we were super ahead, and then Toto just like kept solo winning fights, and we ended up losing that game and going 1-1. It was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
we actually just got KO'd to death. That was poggers.
Yeah.
We were very.
I'm
This is how it turns out.
99% sure that PCE lost a game because we let Kale scale.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, and when you have a really good Kale player, yeah, that's what happens. But I think there's that top that top side is a scary group of people, and I think they can definitely bring the pain, which brings me to NS Shaperd and NS Tempest, which is their bot lane. Tempest, I think NS is one of those teams that you can look at, and their drafts are like the epitome of what people expect from Econ. You have 5 players
Yeah.
that play like 4 champs and cycle through that pool. And Tempest is like the best example of that because it is just Aphelios, Misfortune, Caitlyn.
Mhm.
I like this isn't like a deep dive. You could look at their games yourself and see that Tempest does not play much more than those 3 characters. He doesn't play any more than those 2 characters. While Shaperd is similar in like the Thresh Leona basket, which I think
Love
are
it.
two.
That's a good basket.
That's I'd imagine you'd agree with that basket. It is a pretty sick basket. I mean, I've been put on karma duty a lot this season, but sometimes you just have to roll with the punches. Um, but it's just kind of that idea of letting players play the game the way they want to, and it's easily. I think NS is the best example. Fly High Hunter Civics had
Yeah.
a tough season, to
Mhm.
say the least. while Northern Storm has consistently challenged a top team, I think they actually 2-0'd Kiltco before the season ended. So my face with Northern Storm on this one.
All right. I'll take your word for it. I admittedly like know next to nothing about economy, so
Fair enough.
even though like
Um,
that's my old stomping grounds, I should pay more attention, but there's too many teams.
there are
I
15
just get
teams, 14
overwhelmed.
now. Yeah, a whole lot of teams there. Then there is Limitless Eclipse versus Equinox. I will be honest, I don't know anything about these two teams.
All right.
Partially due to the fact that they had equally tough seasons. They Group A
Mhm.
was a 3-horse race for the entirety of um, the season, and Limitless Eclipse and Equinox never really had a chance, though towards the end, Equinox, I believe, 2-0'd C and D, but from what I've double checked the game, it seemed like C and D was like pretty heavily role swapped. So I think,
Um, yes, it looks like it. Macro is support, but he played
yeah,
Thresh, so like, props to him.
yeah. Always interesting to see players who don't play support jump into support and then play like a hard ass champ and not just like go the Karma Lulu route. Always good to see. Um,
I tried
uh,
enough karma this season. I'm never picking that champ ever again.
I am the because there is not enough people. There aren't enough people on the team
Mm-hmm.
who are willing to jump into the karma pool. It's like it's a flex in quotation marks, but it's like if we lock karma, I'm playing karma, which is like
You just revealing this about your team?
we haven't picked it in a lot of games, and I mean
Fair
it's
enough.
super obvious if you've seen your drafts. Don't worry, we're only picking really weird things. So
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
I think
Is
that's
that every? That is that?
I think
Did we
that's
do
every
it? Did we do
matchup.
economy?
We did economy the entirety. That is the
We
bulk
did
of the
it.
podcast. But lordy
Yep.
lord. Moving on. Executive D1 and D2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a super cool dynamic. Team Titans. Oh, I almost threw my phone onto the floor by accident. Team Titans. I keep wanting to say team.
Mm-hmm.
Went in. I think they had an interview after their quarterfinals match that was like, yeah, we're gonna play Space Baboons. They shit stomped us in the regular season. We're super scared,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll see what we can do. And they 2-0'd Space Baboons to
Two
go
of
to the
them.
finals.
Pretty handily.
So we're talking
Pretty good.
pretty handily, yeah. So we're talking about a for fun versus Team Titans finals. And these are two basically completely newcomer teams. Um,
Yeah.
there are some players on Team Titans that have played this previous season. I think Muchai and or Mukai. I don't know if it's Mukai or Muchai, but it doesn't matter. And Fireflans,
We'll
I
go with
know
Muchai.
definitely got you. And I think Memer Sticks maybe, but still they have their mid jungle.
Yeah,
I
those
believe
are
is
familiar
named
names. And Fireflies
mm-hmm.
is a familiar name too.
Super familiar, yeah. But mid jungle is still relatively new, and I think the team name is new. So I think fairly qualifies for the team. While for fun is like 5 players that I haven't heard of up until this point. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a super awesome thing happening in Executive D1 where we have two teams that are really good facing off, and this is like about as close as there's a chance this is as close we get to CEO finals. No insult to them, but it's about as close as we might get to that. Um, but there is a. I'm sorry, I was scrolling through For Fun's game and I just saw John a top game.
Ugh.
Like my brain actually just stopped. That was interesting. A little bit of culture shock there. Um, but
Ugh.
wow, there's another one. Holy moly. Okay, that's no way. Holy shit, that's 3. Okay. Like okay, this is an interesting team because you have. It's like these are some of the coolest drafts I've seen in a while. Not gonna cap. I guess I should probably be put on a stake for calling John a top drafts cool, but whatever. Um,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's
um,
disgusting. Pick a real champ.
John is a real champ. Don't you love getting tornadoed in the middle of your fight and then knocked away?
Fake champ.
And then
What a fake champ. That's not even real.
oh lord. Engage supports just hate enchanters so by.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not biased. Let's
Of
talk
course
about
not. Of course not.
executive matches. um,
But I
yeah,
think for fun,
executive
really, yeah, this is executive D1. There is a super interesting thing that's been going on in a lot of Team Titans games. Once again, I will only say information that I think is easily deductible from
Mhm.
match history, like literally looking at their games. And by literally looking at Team Titans games, why aren't people banning Firefly's Mundo?
True.
This is a champ that I think they've just actually shit stomped everyone on for a couple of weeks now. It's not getting banned, and I don't know why. Doesn't really make
Yeah,
any
me neither.
sense to me.
I don't want to play against Mundo.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Unless I'm playing Mundo, I don't want to play against the champ. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think D1 is going to be interesting. The drafts are going to be fire. I'm sure that a team like For Fun will make me super excited to watch a draft. Um, I haven't been like Omega excited to watch a draft since like Econ playoffs because so many of the teams had baller picks. I like.
If I see Jan elected, I'm turning off the stream though.
Fair enough. That's a reasonable. Well, you don't want to watch Jana.
No, I don't. We're talking about D2 now. We're getting away from this disgusting mess.
All right. So D2, we've got Mud Crabs United and Reformed facing on the top side of the bracket. I think these are two pretty good teams. Reformed is new. No, they're not new. That is, I'm gonna stop myself. They are not new. They are technically new, but not like super new. Okay, so last season, Com D1, Fox Zero and Crimvale were a part of. I think their team was called Degenerate Reformed or Degenerate Exiled or something like that. Degenerate something.
Yeah. It was something. Yeah, something degenerate. Something.
Something like that. And they were super good, like actually so good. But the team got disqualified in like the mess that was the Degenerate teams last year. So they've come back as Degenerates Reformed and have been on a stomp and grind ever since. Fox Zero and Crimvale are still absolutely ridiculous. And this time they've added 3 other players that are absolute gods at the game. So I think it's super interesting. But their opponents are
Yeah.
Mud Crabs United. Ninja Bear. I'm just gonna start with Ninja Bear. Ninja Bear's really good at the game. Like actually ridiculous. The best Corki player since MZ Shady. A Vel'Koz God. Cassiopeia King. Like just so many good. Person of Guy is a ridiculous top leader. Mask Link is really good at the jungle role. And when you have an amazing jungler, and that's not even mentioning Forever Molding and Mobron as a bot lane duo, are super scary and have a ridiculous control over the game when they need to. And I mean, Mobron's just like a mascot of the league and his dog, but mostly
and his dog. Let's not
mostly
forget
his dog. Actually, now that I think about it,
no disrespect to Mobron, but your dog is turbo cute.
Yeah, definitely. There's I think there's an interesting call to be made because I think Mud Crabs is omega good, and I think the same goes for Reformed.
Hmm.
And a lot of the same positions, I think they're really just like matched across the map. So it's gonna be a banger probably. I I have a hard time imagining that it's not. I think. Um, moving on, Limit Testers versus Kilter Skilter. I think two of the coolest captains in executive
Hmm.
between Cloud Turtle and Rio Clue. Rio Clue is just like actually like top one captain every season.
I've only heard good things about Ryoku.
Yeah, she's just like literally consistently always good thing. Only ever good things to say about Rio Clue. She's poggers, but there's also Kilter Skilter and Cloud Turtle. This team is scary. Like actually, you've got Jazoon from last season's Furious Five,
No,
which is no, I
no,
sure
wasn't it?
because Fast Five was like
No, 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 no.
M6.
Jijun was the top laner. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, yeah, the top laner. So yeah, was last season's top laner
I was
absolutely
thinking it,
ridiculous.
and I was like, no, no,
Yeah,
no. That was the other guy.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Turbo Smurf, whatever his name was.
yeah, yeah. Jian Wuchi,
John Wuchi.
an absolute fiend. I think Com D2 MVP, like all those things. Just but Jazoon's an absolute like goat. They've got a player on their team
Yeah.
named Mistress Yi. What more can I say about
What
that?
more can
That's
you have?
actually crazy. That's like wow. Um, I think there's a lot of interesting things about the team. I think they've got a lot of strong players that have been strong before. So I'm super interested in how that series will turn out as well. Who do you have going to the finals in executive?
Who do I going to the finals?
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see here. I think I have Mud Crabs over Reformed, but I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
like a dead set. Like
Right.
I think it's like 70-30 that Mud Crabs goes to the finals. I think Reformed has a real chance. I think if you can shut down some of the bigger carry threats on Mud Crabs, then
Mm-hmm.
you're golden.
Right.
Plus, I think that like when you're looking at executive teams, these are teams with like not bad, like these are like pretty much all plat teams. And I think plat is kind of like that like tipping point where like macro starts to become like a big focus for at least individual players and
Mm-hmm.
definitely for teams. So like if you scrounge a lead because somebody makes a mistake or somebody makes a poggers play, then
Mm-hmm.
like you're able to kind of spiral and snowball off of that. So I think like
Yeah.
you can make like one fuck up that loses you like both scuttles and first blood, and you just like lose the game off of it against a good team. And I think that these are teams that have that kind of capability. In
Oh
terms of
yeah.
Kilter Skilter versus Limit Testers, like I'm never rooting against my boy Cloud Turtle, so Kilter Skilter.
Fair enough. I will follow you on the Mud Crabs train, but I've definitely got to go for Rio Clue because as a captain, I don't know. It's super hard for me
That's respectable. That's respectable.
to vote against them.
Put your put your schmeckles on it, and we'll talk.
100%. All right. How do you want to talk about CEO?
Um, how can we talk about CEO?
These.
Uh, let's. I. It's tough just because there's like that lack of games.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that CEO is like the games that I've watched from CEO. Like I think it's like it can be pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Quaz with role swapping has been pretty
The
awesome. I gotta
coolest thing
say,
to
like I think that's
watch.
pretty
Has it
tight.
inspired you as a support to like
I'm
run
not
it
playing
down
top
some
lane.
games?
I
I was
tilt
like,
so hard playing top lane. It's not even funny. But
unfortunate. I was gonna say.
I don't like flame when I play top lane. But like when I play like mid or ADC, like for some reason I just like it gets to me for some reason, and I just like I
Yeah.
like
You get
I'm not like
consumed by the
yeah.
powers
Well,
that
you know,
be.
let me not self-incriminate here. Some of my teammates already know. But uh, yeah. So
Oh
watching
Lord.
Quaz has been my mentor, my Bard mentor. So
Dude, I need to learn
I
Bard.
appreciate him. So
I've been
I
meaning
gotta
to.
root for my boy Quaz X. So
Right, yeah, and they've
I
already
have Quaz winning it
taken
all.
series one.
Although let me
Right.
say, Magnum Zong, what a guy. That's a fun person to play a game with. If you ever get an
Yeah.
opportunity to play a game of League of Legends with Magnum Zong, you take it. You got to be part of his like little support group.
Sorry for the clicking around.
But in terms of like what the actual games are, I don't really have that much to say. I haven't been paying
Yeah.
as much attention as I might have should have. But to be honest, hasn't been much going on, so hasn't been much to not pay attention to.
Yeah. There's an interesting like joke going on that I think Rat King Fizzy and the Knights of Amaranth is basically just glue eaters, which I think is fucking hilarious. Um, that team is going against Bondi as a moron, which I think is a funny team. Funny team name.
I also think it's a
I
funny team name.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And Bondi's my
Let's see.
my MD bro, so
Uh, Maryland, what are your thoughts on completely off topic, but I've heard
go
that
ahead.
Maryland has an infatuation with crabs. I have to know.
Oh fuck yeah!
All right.
Like, I yeah. Like if you go to Baltimore, you should go get some like good quality crabs or like a good quality crab cake somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
All right.
couldn't tell you where that is because I don't really like the problem with crabs is that you have to like work. It's like
Mm-hmm.
similar to lobster, but you have to do more work for less gain. Like you have to like open the fucking crab, and it's like pain in the ass. And like
All right. I'm
sometimes there's
gonna.
crab poop in there, and you're like, wow, I just gotta
That's like
scoot that to
wow.
the side.
But the
but
getting
I will say it tastes delicious.
right. Despite all the downfalls, it still tastes very good. I mean,
Yes.
I feel the same way about like because when you're in Texas, Louisiana area, you know, especially if you're on the coast of Texas, you know about crawfish and shrimp. It's
Hmm.
day like literally 24/7. People will crawfish boils, etc., etc. But it's like, oh well, I hope you like having like the dead skin of crustaceans all over your plate.
Yep.
You get
Yep.
used to it
It's
though.
super weird. I'm good. I'm like, give me a burger any day, man.
Please. Anything else, but I'm also not gonna turn down like good shrimp.
True.
Not me. But yeah, that was off topic because you rung up Maryland, but it's also my fault because I was very
Yep.
interested in crabs. Glue eaters versus Bonnie's a moron. There's a very interesting thing that happens to CEO, where like 60% of CEO are the same guys.
Yep.
Like
I mean, there's just
it's
less of
like
them. Like it's just kind of
yeah,
the way
there's
the
just
cookie
less.
crumbles.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super interesting dynamic because it's like there's been this concept floating around. I know it was thought of a little bit before this season where players would sign up um,
Hmm.
to join a draft like system just to see how that would
Right.
play out. And that but that kind
Yeah,
of
I think
happens in
that's
CEO.
interesting.
Yeah, but that kind of happens in CC. I would be interested if something like that happens over the off season. Because I think that could be an interesting off-season project for the whole thing. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I'd say CEO. Hopefully, whenever we do come back to this format of talking, CEO playoffs have developed, and there's more to talk about. But until then, I don't know. I'm kind of
Yeah,
lost.
me neither.
Right. So, that's it. That's all the
Yeah,
leagues
we did
in
it.
about an hour 30.
Yeah, that's honestly better than I thought it was gonna be. I have
Yeah, that
work
was,
tomorrow at 6 a.m. too, so this is
yeah, see, this is good time. 40-minute delay because I don't know how Audacity works, and I will figure that out at some point. But yeah. With that, I will bid adieu to whoever's listening. Whether I'm going, I may have failed on the Audacity front, but this will be on Spotify. This will potentially be on Apple Music. I'm kind of like a Spotify diehard, so I don't know if I'll be able
Yeah,
to
same.
make the treacherous decision to put this on Apple Music. But if I
Apple
can,
Music is gross.
super gross. But if it's requested, I shall. Um, and wherever else you get your podcast, if you get it on some like third party website, it'll be there too. It'll be on YouTube because I'm going to find a way to put this on the low budget LCS YouTube account. But yes, thank you for listening, Jackie boy. Thank you so much for joining me and being my
Thank you for
potential,
having me.
yeah, being my potential permanent host. How things are.
I will I will always host a podcast with you.
That is so poggers to hear you say. Well, I don't know why I just said poggers, but that is great to hear you say. And I will now press the hotkey that ends the podcast. Goodbye.